Rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please, Madam Clerk.
Mayor Beagle.
I'm here.
Deputy Mayor Resnick.
Present.
Councilmember Behrman.
Present.
Councilmember Gotchel.
Here.
Councilmember Grenlin Fox is excused. Councilmember Sharp.
Present.
Councilmember Smiley.
Here.
Quorum present.
Very good, thank you. Changes or additions to the agenda as presented tonight. City Manager Brown,
I do not have any.
any from the dais? All right, seeing none. We'll move on to approval of minutes. We've got one set of minutes to approve tonight, and that's from the regular City Council meeting of January 25th, 2022. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Support. Any corrections, additions, deletions? All right, seeing none, I got a motion and a second to approve the minutes of the regular City Council meeting of January 25th, 2022. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Next up is correspondence. We have 3 items of correspondence tonight. The first one is a notice of hearing for the customers of Consumers Energy, case number U-21062. A notice of hearing for the customers of DTE Electric, case number U-20836. And a memo from Police Chief Moore regarding information for interpreting police dispatched run analysis. Do I have I don't need a motion for that. Next up is the first call to the public. The rules to the call to the public are as follows. The public shall address the council during call to the public, which shall be included on the agenda immediately after correspondence and again immediately after new business. The first call to the public immediately after correspondence shall be limited to agenda items only. A person shall not address the council in excess of 5 minutes unless the time is extended by a majority vote of council present. Persons wishing to address the council shall identify themselves and their place of residence and shall state their reason for addressing the council. And all comments by the public shall be made directly to the council. Do we have anybody for the first call to the public tonight? All right, I'll close the first call to the public and move on to City Manager's report. The first report tonight is the Fire Monthly Report of January 2022. Any questions? Councilmember Berman?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a question regarding the explosions/fires in the building. I noticed there was 2 in December, but only 6 for the year. So I hadn't heard anything, so.
It was nothing significant. It's just the way it was classified.
Okay.
So it's electrical arc more of anything.
Okay. That was my only question. Thank you, sir.
Any other questions for Chief Roberts? Getting off easy tonight. Second manager's report is the police monthly report for January 2022. Any questions for Public Safety Director Moore? Deputy Mayor Resnick?
Thank you, Mayor. Public Safety Director, I was listening with interest over the last couple of days to a couple news stories about at least a perceived increase in crime throughout cities in America. And thank you for the memo on how we classify the crimes and all. I was wondering before your tenure ends here, could you take the last 5 years and an annual total similar to our monthly report, and let's look at the last 5 years and see what the trends are in those Class A and Class B crimes. I think the data is there from past reports. You probably have it in a database. If you could actually do that, I think for the last 5 years, from 2017 through 21, that'd be great.
Yeah, I'd be happy to.
Thank you.
And I'll break it down by Group A crimes and Group B crimes, just like on the report and the memo, or the memo that you received.
It would just be good to see. We know we've had an increase in population of 3,000 to 4,000 people. It would be interesting to see what the trend is there and if it follows the national trend. So
Sure.
thank you. Thank you.
Councilmember Sharp?
Thank you, Mayor. Chief Moore, thank you, first of all, on the explanation. I agree with Deputy Mayor Resnick. It's really good to see it in writing. One of the things I like to look for is the traffic safety officer. And I think, based on your explanation, it looks like it's under other service requests for tickets/citations. Would that be speeding tickets? Is that the category for that?
That's correct. Any traffic-related citation that's issued falls in that category there.
But when I go down to the it's hard to pinpoint where that is. I see traffic offenses, accidents, traffic complaints, non-criminal complaints.
It's other,
The total calls for all other miscellaneous calls, is it in there?
yes, all other miscellaneous calls. On my memo, I put other service requests, so it appears as though there was a
That's fine.
slight change in the wording on the report.
I just want to see the fine work that our traffic safety officer's doing in writing here. 'Cause
Sure, I
know he
have
works
the-
hard on Charms Road.
I have the numbers for 2020, or 2021 rather.
No, that's fine. I just want to know where to look on the line item, so thank you.
Okay.
That's fine, thanks.
Sure. Now, just so you know, Mr. Sharp, that is not just exclusively tickets.
I understand.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? Any questions? Okay, thank you. Moving on to the consent agenda. All items listed under the consent agenda are considered routine by the city council and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a council member so requests, in which event the items were removed from the consent agenda and added to the regular agenda at the unfinished new business. Do I have a motion?
So moved. Support.
Okay, I got it. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We have no unfinished business tonight. Leads us to a discussion item, project update, economic development, and marketing/branding strategy. And I'll turn it over to Assistant City Manager Benson.
Thank you, Mayor Beagle, and good evening to all of you members of City Council. The purpose of this discussion is just to keep you all in the loop and answer any questions and get out in front of some planned updates to the Wixom Economic Development Strategy. This is a project that was initiated in late 2019, and you all may recall a couple months later, the world got a little strange. This project kind of hit the back burners. It's something we're looking to really get going in earnest and complete this year. This project would update the economic development strategy with new data, as well as create and include a marketing and branding strategy from an economic development perspective for the city of Wixom. So what we're looking to do is to take this 2014 document, some of you who've been around may recall, a little dense and not quite as direct in terms of the goals and objectives that the city may have been looking for, and it's been a few years, so we wanted to update that, and the Michigan Economic Development Corporation, as part of their RRC program, agreed to help fund this project among a couple others via their technical assistance fund. Through that process, City Council approved an agreement with CIB Planning to do these various projects. The other two we've already gotten started are well on the way with. This one had not yet, so we wanted to get it started. As mentioned, the desired outcome is an updated strategy, but we don't want it to just be an internal focus, city staff or just, kind of regulars informing, what the vision or what the perception of Wixom is as we talk about how to brand ourselves from an economic development perspective going forward, or what, maybe some of those goals and objectives in an updated strategy should be. So the first step to this is an intention to create an advisory committee of business members around the city of Wixom. This would be, downtown business owners, manufacturing company owners or executives or key players there, developers, real estate folks, people like that, a group of 7 to 13, somewhere in that small group range, to basically work like a focus group, bounce ideas off of, and really help inform our staff and CIB Planning, who will be kind of helping us lead this effort in crafting a recommended strategy. They would then review it, make a recommendation to City Council to send it to you all to consider, and we could go from there. The one big thing I want to note is that we're focused on going through this process and being deliberate about it and coming out with something that is inclusive of, not just of City Council's goals, but being comprehensive and being measurable with performance measures that, we know what the activities are that relate to the goals. We know how to measure that and then can report on that on a regular basis, whether it's annually, quarterly, even just as a part of my regular monthly reports to you all. So we anticipate this particular project could take 3, 4, maybe 5 months. But something that gets done this year, it crosses off a couple big tickets on our journey to becoming RRC certified. And I would also say board and commission members and city council members, you know, if there was a member of council who was interested in participating on this committee, I'd love to hear from you and get you involved. So open to some feedback on that and any other feedback or questions you may have on this project. I'm happy to try and answer.
Councilmember Gatchel.
Thank you. In looking at the CIB letter, under step 1, it talks about the steering committee and makes no rule of thumb is to have 51% or more of the group be private sector business owners or leaders. Is that talking about folks who have a business or work in a business in Wixom but aren't residents, or is that talking more so about Wixom residents who just happen to own businesses maybe elsewhere, or they're kind of C-suite or whatever the case may be in their business if they're outside of Wixom?
It would be business owners whose businesses are located in Wixom, so they may live in another community, but their business is here, they work here. The preference is, you know, well, not just long-term, you know, but I'm trying to think of a good example. Somebody who's been here 30 years, you know, they may live in Farmington Hills, but their business has been in Wixom for a long time, so they would have a certain perspective on what the city of Wixom was, is, and maybe what it could be from their perspective. So not just residents in that sense.
I guess with this, I know it's a step toward going through RRC, but ultimately, what do you see as the goal of this? I mean, it's nice to have a strategy of how you're going to attract businesses, but we can't delineate, hey, this is what Wixom's going to be an autonomous vehicle city kind of a thing. That's not up to us. We don't own all of the properties and control all the leases. So I'm just trying to figure out what exactly the point of the steering committee. And to your point, what you just made, I would almost, if someone lives outside of Wixom but their business is here, that they have a perspective of what Wixom is, but not necessarily what it could be. Whereas if you have a Wixom resident who owns a business somewhere else and they are in that somewhere else because it's a more attractive environment or whatever the case may be, I think that is maybe a more beneficial outlook to bring, because we need to figure out, I mean, realistically, when it comes to attracting businesses, we're competing with our neighboring cities. So if someone in Wixom has their business in downtown Novi or wherever the case may be, why? And so I think that maybe that perspective would be helpful as well, not just who we have here. I mean, we kind of have that on the tax abatement review board right now, and it's like, it's people that are familiar with our city, but it doesn't give us any outside perspective. So
No, absolutely, and to your point, I think one of the goals is to be very broad, so not having too many individuals from any one type of background. So even that citizen input from, let's say, a city council member participates, a planning commissioner, a DDA board member, people who are likely residents of the city of Wixom, and then having, you know, maybe it's one or two whose businesses are here but they're not. So you get those variety of opinions to be able to then, you know, weigh them against each other. One of the goals, your first question was, you know, what do we hope this provides, is when we're talking about a strategy for the city of Wixom, you know, it does at a certain point lean itself into our master planning, our zoning, and those are documents that would be referred to in this process to say, what have we planned for, how do we market ourselves for having that. As an example, the IRO district is similar but very distinct from light industrial. We get a lot of calls about people who are interested in doing M1 type activities in the IRO, and we tell them, no, these were zoned for more specific activities related to, you know, advanced manufacturing, higher technology, kind of more ambitious land uses. And those are the kinds of things that when outlined in a strategy and then tied to how we market and brand ourselves, can help make an impact on how fruitful our efforts are for attracting and retaining the businesses we have in those areas. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah, can this, as part of this and RRC in general, can it lead to us updating our ordinances, like height requirements and whatnot that were written before we had ladder trucks and that kind of stuff, so maybe we can accommodate taller buildings in different areas?
Yes, actually, yeah, that is a perfectly reasonable goal or objective that could come out of the economic development strategy, is if, you know, through looking at market data along with this kind of focus group feedback, there's a note that says, you know, developers are really looking for 80-foot tall buildings now, or something along those lines. You know, that's something that can then be taken to, the goal is to bring it to Planning Commission and ultimately City Council to consider those kinds of things. So yes, absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Smiley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, Mr. Benson. Yeah, I like the idea of getting some community input, both businesses and of course, you know, residents. I think they can give you some valuable, you know, ideas and thoughts. You never know what's floating out there, and it gets them invested in their city. So I like that, but I'm not sure. I guess, will someone sort of lead them or help them understand what it is we're trying to do? If it's you, that's great, or somebody.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because they may be willing to give you the time and the ideas, but you know, there's a lot of different disciplines involved here. A logo versus you know, specifications for signage type things. You know, some of that may be more feedback than others. So good. All right, and then once it's complete, well, one more thing before that. I guess I'd wait to see what you get. You know, I'm assuming nothing's going to be hard and fast. You know, from what kind of feedback we get. You never know who will get involved. They might be great ideas, but they're just not the right fit. But you know, you'll control all that because you know who knows what's coming. So weight it, you know, appropriately. Then once you have that information, that feedback, the advisory committee's job is done, and you know whether you love it or just kind of like it, what is going to happen to it then?
So then it would come forward to City Council for your consideration to whether you agree with the document, right? To adopt this plan, this updated version of goals and objectives. Yeah.
They'll actually present to us finished ideas.
Well, yeah, we would, myself and Elena Moeller Younger from CIB Planning, her specialty is in this marketing and branding tied to the economic development side. Justin Sprague from CIB is also involved. So the three of us together will be leading this effort. Really, there's a structure around how the committee will be, they'll be tasked with, questions they'll be asked, how their feedback is incorporated into the process, and then yes, the outcome of their recommended plan with our help and kind of guidance would be brought to you all for your consideration of how you feel about what's produced, right? And if there were concerns, they could be sent back and we can continue to work on it.
Okay. Yeah, it feels like a long meeting.
Well,
I'm just saying a lot could come in, they'd be all over the place. I could see, Mayor Beagle liking one thing and Deputy Mayor Resnick not liking something, and Keenan won't like anything, of course. Just kidding. And there are different disciplines. There's something about logos, something about, specifications around the city, and it sounds like not just a one document that we can tweak. It may have to go back and forth a little bit, and that's fine. Just perhaps the first presentation to us is more of a discussion item where we noodle it a little bit and then it gets refined, that kind of thing.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. Well, sounds like this is a nice start to a process that there'll be lots of stuff to talk about later. I'll leave it at that. But thanks. Yeah. Move forward and sounds good. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Resnick.
I just wanted to build on some of Councilman Gottschall's comments, and I think this is great. We talked about it in 2014, about getting it started, and it's good to see that because we said marketing, branding, and the key audience of who we're pitching the city to is very important, right, in trying to attract these new businesses. So I'm all for it, very supportive of it. The one thing I want to see if we can capture on this steering committee as well, there are some, within the last 4 or 5 years, some technology companies or other manufacturing companies that have left the city for certain reasons. Some of them are residents of the city, but their companies have exited. It'd be good to also rope those people in. Okay, what were you looking for? Why? I know you've had a lot of these interviews with those folks already, but it'd be good to have their input on the committee as well as new recruits, people that have decided to set up shop here. Why Wixom when the competition in the surrounding area is so fierce right now? So I just wanted to build on Councilman Gottschall's points.
Absolutely, that's great feedback.
Councilmember Sharp?
Thank you, Mayor. So, Mr. Benson, 2 things. One, 2 weeks ago in council, we were talking about, I think, is task 1 here in the CIB letter of preparation of amendments to the Village Center Area District, the zoning ordinance. Is this part of that?
Yeah,
I didn't really understand 2 week's ago. I was like, man, VCA's done almost. Yeah. And turns out we're kind of restarting something that had been put on the back burner 2 years ago because of COVID. CIB's been working on it along the way. It's starting to make a little more sense to me why we brought a VCA ordinances in 2 weeks ago when there's a chance we'll have a lot of inconsistency, but hopefully we can. And that's just part of the overall picture. I mean, I know that that's the marketing piece of it, I think. And then the readiness, redevelopment readiness is that part of the VCA thing, or is that part of more the commercial side? I guess VCA is kind of both, isn't it? It's not just residential.
It
all
is
intertwines.
Our whole
Okay.
development processes.
2 weeks ago's discussion makes a lot more sense to me now, why we were having it when I felt like VCA is pretty far along to be rewriting all the code, and that makes a little more sense. So we're trying to jumpstart this again, and okay, I support it. I think it's worthwhile. Clearly it was worthwhile 2 years ago. We funded it, and we got some funds from Michigan Economic Development. That's still available, right? They didn't
Yes.
take it back or anything?
Nope.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Councilmember Smiley?
Something Deputy Mayor Resnick said made me think, when he mentioned about, reaching out to some folks that have, whose businesses have left, getting, commitment to a committee where there's, meetings that aren't specified yet, that kind of thing. That might chase off a few people that we'd love to hear, get information from. So, just making contact with those folks and just saying, hey, if you can't be a part of this, how about, filling out this simple form with a few ideas of, what you would like to see or thought of. So maybe you already got that covered, but.
No, that's a great suggestion too, and I think, being flexible with how we get input is an important part too. You're right, not everyone's going to want to take part, and even if it's 3 or 4 meetings, that can be a lot, so.
Yeah, or they may have something very specific that they would like to add to it, but they don't really want to have to listen or do or involve with anything else. It's because there's several different disciplines involved, so, you know what I'm saying? So, yeah, I think, kind of let everybody say something and then have some core group that can work with that and feed off of it. Okay, thanks.
Any other questions? All right. I'd be willing to be on the committee if you need to, so keep that in mind. And we don't need any further action on that. So we're going to move on to new business number 1. And new business number 1 is a recommendation to eliminate the position of Director of Public Safety and return to a police chief/fire chief model of police and fire administration upon separation of employment of Public Safety Director/Chief of Police Ron Moore. Just a little, I need a motion.
Support.
All right, just to give a little background on this, in 2004, Wage and Salary Committee recommended to the city that we go to a Director of Public Safety. It's been that way since 2004, and with Public Safety Director Moore retiring later on this year, myself and City Manager had a conversation, and we believe it's time to go back to the Police Chief / Fire Chief way to go and eliminate the Director of Public Safety. So I'll turn it over to you, Ron.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Mayor and members of council. As the mayor said, we have been operating under this model for coming up on 18 years. And I believe the public safety director model has served the city well. But with my upcoming retirement, it's quite possible that the next chief executive of the police department is going to be an external candidate. That is somebody not coming up through the ranks. It's very possible that he or she will come from the outside. When Mr. Brown and I first started having meetings to discuss the transition from me to that next person, the very first question that we felt we should answer was, what will the city call that person? Police chief or public safety director? And Mr. Brown and I, and it sounds like the mayor as well, believe that it's perhaps time to return to the police chief, fire chief model, for the reason I just said about having an external candidate who's not going to be familiar with the nuances of the fire department. And I guess the other reason too is with the new collective bargaining, or fairly new collective bargaining environment that the fire department is now under, having a public safety director is another layer of decision making that Mr. Brown and I believe is perhaps unnecessary at this time. So it's for those reasons that I'm recommending that the city return to the police chief, fire chief model upon my separation.
Any questions? Councilmember Berman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Director Moore, I guess my question would be, I understand the logic of making this decision to go back to it, but if this is what you believe should happen, why are we waiting upon your separation? Why not do it now to get used to having the police chief and the fire chief, and then we can concentrate on hiring a new police chief that you can work on training, and fire chief can get comfortable working with the city manager's office directly, removing that whole extra layer now. Why wait?
That's a great question. To your point on hiring a police chief and me training him or her, that I hope that will happen. To answer your question directly, currently I'm involved in the collective bargaining process with the fire department, as well as a restructuring process. So I believe it would be wise to keep me in the position of public safety director up until the point I separate.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Deputy Mayor Resnick.
Thank you. On the weekend when I was going through the packet, I decided to look at based on the last census numbers, 6 communities that are approximately 17,000 residents, and I looked at Milford, Fenton, Wayne, Traverse City, Grosse Pointe, Woods, and Muskegon, and only one of them had a public safety director, and that was because they do combined public safety, and that was Grosse Pointe Woods, where they have people, fire,
cross-train,
police, and EMS cross-training. But I think it's the right way to go. We've talked about it a number of times over my 12 years on council, so I'm in support of it.
Councilmember Smiley.
Thank you again, Mr. Mayor. I guess, Councilman Berman and Resnick, kind of said some of the same things I had. I thought that was, an idea that, why wait? But I trust that you know what's best timing-wise, so that's fine. I got no problem with that. And yeah, we've talked about this, years ago. So I'm glad we're doing it, and it feels like, we have good timing for it. And then it's just so much easier to say chief when I address you.
One syllable.
I like that, yeah.
As opposed to 3. Yeah, that's a great, I should have put that in my report.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And then you'll have the distinction, of course, of being the final and last, public safety director from
Indeed.
Wixom. So I think that might be part of your motivation.
Don't tell me.
Thank you, that's all.
Councilmember Gatchel.
Thank you. I fully support this as well. I remember talking about it with, when we used to have Mayor Hinckley here, going back to it. It was always my understanding we got into this kind of mentality of we might cross-train, as the deputy mayor was talking about, and so it was kind of something done in preparation, and a lot of cities have been thinking about cross-training as the way of the future, and it never really came about in most cities or in Wixom. So I do think it's a good change. I think it'll help, as well as we have a number of things to address over at the fire department as well. So having, like you had mentioned, one less layer in there might be beneficial with that as well. So I'll be voting yes. Thank you.
Any other questions? All right. Seeing none, I got a motion and a second to approve the recommendation to eliminate the position of Director of Public Safety and return to a police chief/fire chief model of police and fire administration upon separation of employment of Public Safety Director/Chief of Police Ron Moore. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Don't go too far around.
Thank you.
New business item number 2 is a recommendation to award the bid for 2 2022 Dodge Durango Pursuit vehicles to Smith Camp Automotive Family of Redford, Michigan for a total cost of $74,800 from Vehicles Police account number 411-301-973.370. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Support. And also in attendance tonight is a city resident, Derek Kulik, who's also a representative of Smith Camp, and he's worked with us before and gotten us the best deals we can get on these, and we appreciate that. And so we've got him here too if you've got any questions.
Good. Thank you, Mayor. This was a difficult one. When I got hired as a police officer, we had Fords. I grew up in Wixom. I remember seeing the officers drive around in Fords. But as you see in the report there, due to a change in body style, both interior and exterior of the Ford Explorer Police Interceptors, it was going to require the city to purchase new equipment completely outright. So that was going to be somewhat of a fixed cost, whether we remained with the Interceptors or we went to a Durango or any other police vehicle for that matter. We were going to have to purchase new equipment, light bars, cage, push bumpers, all of it. So police administration believed that now was a good time to investigate the possibility of changing. We got our hands on a Dodge Durango Pursuit vehicle, police package Pursuit, and it was tested and evaluated. The police officers absolutely loved it and made comparisons to the Interceptors, Explorer Interceptors they're currently driving. So then we checked the My Deal pricing, and ultimately, at the end of the day, with the My Deal pricing, as well as any the extras that we're going to have to purchase, the extra options and features, Mr. Hewlett from Smith Camp Automotive Family he has offered a price to the city that is $400 per car cheaper than what we would pay by going straight out with the state of Michigan competitive bid pricing. But I will also tell you that this is late breaking news. At the time I wrote the report, and I, in the interest of being transparent, I will tell you this. At the time I completed this report, the My Deal state competitive bid pricing on the 2022 Ford Explorer Interceptors was not in. The competitive pricing was not posted yet to the website. We checked it this morning, and it is in. So I will tell you that the Dodge Durango Pursuits are 7.3% more than the Ford Explorer Interceptors. So it is a more expensive vehicle, the Durango, but we believe it's a quality vehicle. I've put a bunch of performance options in a table in my report for you, as well as the fact that the police officers loved it. And again, Mr. Hewlett, as the mayor alluded to, he has taken very good care of the city and provided outstanding customer service. So I am respectfully requesting that you authorize the purchase of the 2 Durangos. Thank you.
Hey, Ron, what's the miles per gallon comparison? Do we know? I mean, is the
sure
Dodge
do.
better?
One mile per gallon better.
Yeah, the Durango's slightly better.
Okay.
18 to 17 city, 25 to 23 highway, 21 to 19 combined. So slightly better on the Durango.
Any questions? Deputy Mayor Resnick?
Thank you. Public Safety Director Moore, back in April, when we talked about this during the budget session, we had budgeted $105,000 for 2 patrol cars at $35K, plus changeovers at $15K. Was the changeover mostly labor of deinstalling and reinstalling on another Explorer, or was that new cages, new light bars?
In the past, we have paid approximately $8,000 in changeover per car when we had the ability to take the equipment and just simply move it to another model year. Because it's going to require new equipment, that's why the 15. That's the estimate, the quote that we received from our vendor that we use.
Okay, so we don't anticipate a budget overrun on that line item, the 105?
I don't anticipate going over for that capital account.
The other thing is, I know we've talked about this for a long time, but the all-department vehicle listing, I don't know, city manager, who puts this together, but whenever this comes before us, this is so helpful to have it, because it gives us, the age and the type of vehicle here. So a question on this list from 2020, we had two 2018 Dodge Charger lease vehicles in the police force. Do we still have those leases, or are these going to replace those?
No, the Dodge Charger leases are for the detectives.
Okay.
And we have since turned those in, and we now have a Dodge Durango and a
Jeep, I believe.
and a Jeep for our leases from Sneth Camp for the plainclothes investigators. So that's a completely separate item.
Okay, so those are gone.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, it'd be great anytime, even if it's a DPW piece of equipment, to get this updated list to us. It helps a lot.
It's DPW shop that does that.
Yeah, I think Tim does that list, yeah.
Great. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Councilmember Bourbon?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That was actually going to be my question. We currently have how many patrol cars? I want to say 6.
7.
7. So are the 2 older ones, are we going to be putting them down to a different department?
Correct. The highest mileage patrol cars will come out of service and go somewhere in the city.
So if we're committing to changing the style to the Dodge Durango, it would be eventual that we're going to replace all 7 of them to match.
If we're satisfied with the Durango into the future, yes.
And then you said the style changed on the Explorer, and we've been buying those for going on 5-6 years now.
Probably 6 years.
When was the last time the style changed on the Durango? Is it going to change next year and then we're going to be in the same problem?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what the body style is going to do in 2023.
Do you know how long the current style has been out, or the current?
I don't.
Derek, do you know any of those questions?
The current style's been out for just a couple of years. Looking into the future, I wouldn't.
Okay.
It usually goes 5-6 years between body style changes. Okay. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilmember Gacho?
Thank you. I do have a number of questions. The first one was related to the vehicle list, which I didn't have handy, but do you know what mileage the patrol vehicles that are going to be retired, what those mileages are?
Because we did not purchase police vehicles last year, I'm going to say that they're in the ballpark of 40 to 50,000.
Okay. It seems like light. I know we've had this conversation before and we've debated engine hours and mileage, but then we found out the mileage could go higher than we've typically used them for. This has been something since I was first elected that I'm always leery. I feel like we purchase vehicles too frequently for patrol vehicles. Is there anything, I know we've talked about idling before, will we still need to idle these vehicles when they're not out on the road?
Well, in response to the last comments I heard from council, I did create a policy on limiting the idle time for the patrol vehicles.
Okay. How much does that cut down the idling?
I don't have that data before me.
One of the other things, and I guess it's kind of a prelude to our goal-setting session next week, but one of my goals talks about hopefully kind of a greener Wixom in some respects. So looking at like the city, because the highway miles we're not really going to get in Wixom for our patrol vehicles. It's mostly going to be city miles, and 18 miles a gallon doesn't seem great in that respect. So I'm just wondering what, and this is, I guess is a little bit more of a historical question, what prompted us to go from cars, which get a better fuel economy, to SUVs?
I was not the police chief when that decision was made, but I can tell you that Ford Motor Company stopped making the Crown Victoria Police Interceptor.
So we just kept buying whatever they were selling? essentially?
Again, yeah, probably.
Yeah, okay.
I believe back then we tested a couple of them and we decided on the Ford. But there was like 2 or 3 that we had brought out and had the officers test drive. And
Mayor, I think you're right. I think we did try the Charger,
Yeah.
and the officers found it to be cramped.
Mhm.
And the Explorer at the time, they were very satisfied with it. It was a much bigger than the Crown Vic. You wore that thing, but.
Yeah, it's just one of those things that, I mean, between the frequency of purchasing, and I appreciate you enabling the idling reductions. Hopefully it has reduced the amount we're idling the vehicles, but sticking with the SUVs, and I was doing some research in preparation for our meeting next week, and I mean, there's places all over the world they use cars, not SUVs and trucks and whatnot, and for some reason around here, not just Wixom, but our area, everybody's bent on using SUVs for that. And so I was looking at electric vehicles, and I guess it's a little bit tough to hear that this is more expensive than the new Ford. What my deal would be, I don't know that I'm necessarily even in favor of it just based on the mileages, but there's communities that have gone to Tesla Model 3s and Model Ys, and they're seeing savings of thousands of dollars per year. So I know it's not an immediate thing. That'd be a big change to do right now, but that's, like I said, a little bit of a prelude, I guess, to next week's meeting is rethinking how we're going about our patrol vehicles, I guess. I actually had a conversation with someone at a police station in Indiana today about their decision, and they're extremely satisfied with their Tesla vehicles. So it's just, I'll probably be a no on this just based on the mileage, but I don't know. This is getting tougher as it gets more expensive and more needless. We're not off-roading all the time in our vehicles, so.
I guess, Councilman Gotchel, I would respectfully disagree with your assessment of that. Putting police officers in vehicles and I understand that 50,000 miles to us, to a personal vehicle, is not a lot, but the type of wear and tear that a patrol vehicle gets, putting police officers in vehicles with mileage getting up around 50,000, it makes me a little bit uncomfortable. So I'll just share that.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I feel like it was maybe a budget setting session we had, though, maybe the most recent one or 2 ago. We had talked about it, and someone, I can't remember, was talking to another police department or figured out what it was, and the Fords, I think the average was around 60,000 before those were being phased out in a lot of communities, so, and we were even below that, so. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Councilmember Sharp?
Thank you, Mayor. Director Moore, thank you for a conversation earlier today on some of the data and bringing the pricing in on the Explorer. I wanted to let council know that there's 2 pretty nationally known organizations that test police vehicles. The Michigan State Police, we're fortunate enough to have one of them. The other is the LA County Sheriff's Department. I haven't looked into LA County Sheriff, but what I can say is that in this year's testing, Tesla did not enter anything into Michigan State Police. So they're probably not going to get many bought because most communities rely on that and those findings from the Michigan State Police or the LA County Sheriff's Department. And when I went through the data, the Explorer and the Durango are comparable in performance. They run tests that are based on how police use vehicles over many years of developing those tests. And the Durango performed pretty well. I was surprised, frankly. I never thought of the Durango. There's a reason Explorer owns like 75% of the Interceptor market in the U.S. But that may be going away. Maybe the competition's up in their game. I don't know. I don't necessarily oppose buying a Durango other than once you get a fleet of vehicles, there are efficiencies there. Although fuel's a big one, and Durango does seem to have better fuel economy. And I know I think you were looking at the 3-liter EcoBoost engine on the Explorer. And if you drive a boosted engine, you're always into the boost. And that just sucks the fuel down. Even though you don't think you are, you are. So probably we will see fuel savings on the Durangos versus the Explorers. So I'm, being an ex-Ford person, I don't mind buying Durangos. Maybe it's another data point that we can understand durability. At 15,000 miles isn't really a lot to be. I know you say it is, but these days it's not really a lot of miles.
Did you say 15 or 50?
I said 15. Did I misspeak?
50.
50.
Yeah.
That's a fair number. Okay. I can't think of what my point was, other than Michigan State Police did evaluate these vehicles and they did well in the competitive set. So, and Michigan State Police did test a Mustang Mach-E, an all-electric vehicle this year.
I thought about it.
Yeah. So interesting for years to come. That would be a fuel savings. Okay, thank you.
If they thought the Interceptor, if they thought the Crown Vic was tight, I'm imagining that one might be tight as well.
Yeah. Oh, I did want to point out, one of the SUVs, all-wheel drive, load carrying capacity, size, space for seating, all the equipment that those things take, generally speaking, of bigger engines in those vehicles are available. Not everybody buys them, but there's a lot of reasons why most police departments are going to SUVs. It's not to save gas. It's about all the equipment and technology that's in those units now. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Resnick?
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to help answer, I think it was Councilman Behrman's question, but Dodge Durango platform is changing in 2024. Stellantis has announced that it's moving from the unibody. It's based on the Jeep Grand Cherokee platform, which is unibody, and they're going to the Grand Wagoneer body and chassis for 2024. So that's just, and I don't know if you guys have ever seen the height of Officer Caldwell, but SUV is much more appropriate. So. Great. Thank you.
Councilmember Smiley?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is actually for City Manager Brown. Just the discussion about the rotation of cars, excuse me, and the debate we had over the fleet and rotation of new cars and the 50,000 miles versus more or less. I remember having quite a bit of lengthy discussion on it. I remember being very happy with our results, decisions in the end. I just can't remember why. So was it difficult to? I know it's not too difficult, but maybe especially if it's going to be coming up next week and all.
I got some reading to do. Yeah.
Fine, just tell me the minutes and shoot us that. I hate to give you homework, but because I could probably dig through the city website myself to find it, but you might be able to
no need. We'll look it up.
Mr. Smiley.
Then we can review it, and it might be especially helpful, for councilmen who weren't here for that discussion, because it was comprehensive, and the decision we came to in the end, is what we've been, working with.
Mr. Smiley, I have some recollection, and I can summarize, and I don't know if it's helpful. My first year as police chief, my first budget year as police chief was 2018, and my predecessor had always budgeted for 3 police cars. So in that 18 budget, I requested 3 police cars. Council granted it, but told me, don't come back with a request for 3. And ever since then, I've done 2. So I'm not sure if that's helpful, but that's a
That's a
little.
concession. You've definitely, wanted to be, careful and fiscally responsible with it. Yeah, no worries there. I just, all that's in a discussion that, I thought would be helpful as a reminder for people like me who can't remember, and, for other council persons who, weren't here. But yeah, it's, I don't want to change it. I support this. I just think it'd be, helpful.
It's a fine point. We'll take care of that.
Thank you.
Councilmember Berman?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just one follow-up question. As far as I can remember, you've been coming forward for 2, but last year you didn't purchase 2. You held off purchasing anything, correct?
Correct.
So we did take last year off purchasing, and now we're getting back on that cycle.
I hope so, yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So, and again, the vehicles are being, they're flowing down, so although our cars have 50,000 in the police department, maybe the car that someone else in DPW is driving has 120, and that one really needs to be replaced by one of the 50,000 ones?
Perhaps not that high, but I can tell you that the retired police cars.
So they are getting cycled down?
Fire department, Parks and Rec, DPW.
Okay.
Those are the 3 primary locations where the retired police cars go to live out their retirement.
Well, I will trust you on the judgment of what car to buy, but I am fine with the concept of purchasing 2 new vehicles.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, seeing none, I got a motion and a second to approve the recommendation to award the bid for 2 2022 Dodge Durango Pursuit vehicles to Snuffcamp Automotive Family of Redford, Michigan for a total cost of $74,800 from Vehicles Police Account number 411-301-973.370. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Mayor Beagle?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Resnick?
Aye.
Councilmember Behrman?
Yes.
Councilmember Gatchel? Councilmember Sharp?
Aye.
Councilmember Smiley?
Yes.
5 yes, 1 no.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
And then just if we want to do like some type of experiment or something like that with electric vehicles, if the city wanted to buy the mayor a Tesla, he'll test drive it and let you know how it works.
You're a stand-up guy, Mayor Beagle. We'll check that out.
You want handcuffs too?
Easy now, easy. New business number 3 is a recommendation to request to convene a closed session of the City Council in accordance with the Open Meetings Act for purpose of discussing labor negotiations pursuant to and authorized by MCL 15.268C. Do I have a motion? So moved. Roll call.
Oh, I'm sorry. Deputy Mayor Resnick?
Yes.
Councilmember Behrman?
Yes.
Councilmember Gatchel?
Yes.
Councilmember Sharp?
Aye.
Councilmember Smiley?
Yes.
Mayor Beagle?
Yes.
6 yes.
Thank you. Next up is the second call to the public. The rules for the call to the public were the same as the first one, only this time you can speak whatever's on your mind. Do we have anybody in the audience for the second call to the public? Seeing none, I'll close the second call to the public and move on to city manager's comments. City Manager Brown?
So the city manager update, Your Honor, I had just a couple of items of information in there about the DPW staff adopting a family in need, and see the attached letter that we received in recognition of that. And then the other thing that I wanted to point out was what I thought was an outstanding occurrence that we had take place with our DPW in consultation with a couple of, with a resident and his children who were seeking out an opportunity to have a community support activity with his kids. And they set out to do some cleanup at the cemetery, including
clean up of brush that was on the ground, clean up the brush that was attached to vegetation that needed to be cleaned up as well. I just thought that was a great idea on their part. It's something that was much appreciated on our part. Did send a personal thank you myself to Mr. Falkowski and his family as well. So we wanted to acknowledge that and thank him at this council meeting venue as well for him stepping up and encouraging his kids to be involved with the community and support the community with that kind of activity. Thought it was outstanding and wanted to mention it. So that was the only thing that I had today. If there's anything I can do in terms of answering questions or anything, I'll do my best.
City Manager Benson, anything?
I do, actually. I'm going to steal a little thunder from my next economic development report because this is fun news. We did get confirmation and can announce that 2 tenants have signed for Building B of the Flint development property. So there will be 2 different businesses splitting the 133 square foot, 1,000 square foot building. One will be Wayfair, the other is Advanced Nutrition. Both are distribution kind of related. I do not have the number of jobs they're proposing yet, but I do know they've submitted for building permits. So I just wanted to share the good news that those are underway. Building A has been a lot of interest, and we hope for an announcement soon. And the building C and D, they've been submitted for site plan review, Planning Commission, and we expect those to go forward to Planning Commission on March 7th. That's the plan right now. So wanted to give an update on that. And also, the Planning Commission did discuss the VCA ordinance after City Council's comments at their meeting last night. The thought after working with City Manager Brown and talking with our folks from CIV Planning is looking at a potential joint meeting in the future as being a good way to bring this conversation together and more kind of clear discussion on how to move that forward. So in the relatively near future, we'll be working to try and schedule something and see what works for all parties involved. So those are the only 2 points that I had.
And Your Honor, if I could just supplement that a little bit and make a comment about the receipt of plans for the second phase of the development through Flint Development along Wixom Road there, the former Ford Wixom plant. That was something that was part of the development agreement, and they were keen on having a longer time horizon on the required time period for that particular I remember to turn off my ringer, but not the alarm. They were interested in having a longer time frame because they weren't sure about how well received the initial effort would be on phase 1, and they wanted to have the flexibility to get that done over a longer time horizon if need be. They obviously found the water to be fine in the city of Wixom in terms of the development that they have completed the construction on for the first 2 buildings, because they've moved forward inside of a year since that has reached substantial completion here and moved forward with the second phase of development, which we find to be exciting. And we're excited to see what other tenants we're going to potentially have come into play at those new buildings on phase 2, as well as what happens on the first larger building, the 740,000 square foot building on the first phase of the development. As Drew Benson mentioned, there's lots of talk and interest on that front, which is what's led to the proceeding earlier on the second phase. So we're excited about that, and Flint Development is as well, so we're pleased that things are working out well on that site, which is critical for not just the city, but for the region beyond. So we're excited about what's going on there.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Certainly.
Question on that, on the development. I can ask it quickly.
Yes.
Given the fact that 2 of the tenants are going to be logistic tenants, have we had any further discussion on the expanding of the acceleration and deceleration lanes that we've talked about previously?
Yes, that has been a direct point of the site plan review for phase 2 is that consideration. It was something that they knew about, and we communicated even prior to them submitting that the impacts of phase 1 tenants will have an impact on the overall site, including the potential, the need to expand that drive lane.
It just seems like it would make sense for them to do that prior to pouring the sidewalks and all the other concrete that's just going to have to come right back out if they expand that lane.
Yes, and we've had multiple conversations about it. That's actually part of what's taken a little longer during the review process is those comments, and then the need to resubmit updated information. I'm not sure right offhand on the most recent submission for Planning Commission what that looks like. I think we just got them a couple days ago. So we can provide more details on that, but suffice to say, yes, that's been a very clear point of conversation, and we've expressed to them that that's kind of our expectation, and paying very close attention to the traffic studies that they've provided and our traffic engineer's review of that to verify that that traffic will be accommodated the way that it needs to, no matter what the end tenants are.
Okay, thank you.
All right, with that, we'll move on to council comments. Councilmember Smiley?
Oh, thank you, Mr. Berman. Mr. Mayor. No, I was thinking, I was just thinking, let Mr. or Councilman Barron go, because he's already talking, just let him go. Council, or, Mr. Brown, I'm sorry, I guess it's been a long day and it's getting late. I was listening to your comments, but I started to write something down, and now I can't remember if you did you bring up from your memo the Falkowski family?
I did.
Oh, you did. Okay, good.
Yep.
So anyway, now on to
Very
my
appreciative of that, so.
Oh yeah, I think those are great stories about our DPW adopting a family in need and the Falkowski family's volunteer work at the cemetery. Love it. Well done. And then just only other thing is thank you to Mr. Hewlett.
Yes.
Okay, I'm saying it right. Good. For providing us some good pricing on the drain.
Weeks out of the office, I don't have any further comments.
Oh, yeah, very stressful. Councilmember Gatchel?
Thank you. I know you had mentioned you don't know how many jobs. Are those completely new businesses to the area, or are they relocating from nearby, so they're just kind of job transfers?
They are both brand new businesses in the city, and I believe neither were within even 10, 15 miles of the city.
So anything, okay, so feasibly any jobs are completely new jobs to the area. They're not somebody that's gonna, hey, we're in Southfield and now we're just gonna be in Wixom kind of thing.
I believe Advanced Nutrition, I want to say, was in Livonia. I could be wrong about that, but that may not, so some of the employees may just, depending on where they live. But yes, likely the majority of the jobs will be new to the area.
Okay, thank you.
Good. Yep. All right, Councilmember Berman?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to point out that Councilmember Sharp did vote to purchase two competing vehicles this evening. And thank you to our resident who sold us those vehicles. I appreciate that we're using a resident to purchase them from, and more importantly, that you take the time out of your evenings to come here most often. That's noticed, and I appreciate that.
Deputy Mayor Resnick?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Derek. Just wanted to also throw my name in the hat for the steering committee, having businesses in both Wixom and neighboring communities. I might be able to offer some input there. And again, shout out to Tim and the DPW crew. Last snow event, I went out kind of hoping that it was plowed yet so I could have an excuse of being late for work, but I noticed bare asphalt in front of the house, so I had to get to work with the snowblower really quick, and I was the first one in the office again for many, many years. So thank you. You guys do a great job. Thanks.
And I just want to thank the DPW staff for adopting a family in need, and thank you to resident Greg Falkowski and his family for their work in the cemetery. Thanks, Derek, for doing what you do for the city. We appreciate it. And with that, do I have a motion to adjourn to closed session?
Adjourn. Motion to adjourn.
Support.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right. Convene in about 5 minutes.